I want to talk just a little bit about locking stitches on a machine without reverse. First off, this machine and most machines that you'll run into are what they call a lock stitch. And so the way the machine sews a stitch, it locks itself on every stitch. That is in comparison to, say, a chain stitch, where it could conceivably be unraveled with the pull of one thread. That's not the case on a lock stitch. A lock stitch, two threads have to back out of the same hole in order to lose one stitch of that seam. Now, I'm not saying that it's not an issue, and I have several machines that have reverse, and that is handy. But that is not to say that a machine without reverse is without its merit. So additionally, I will say about reversing is that in the construction of a garment, for instance, most of the seams will be crossed in later steps of the construction of that garment. For example, a placket on a sleeve, you won't need to hit a reverse on the end of that because the later application of the cuff will cross that seam and lock it in. So probably reverse is an overused feature of a sewing machine. Okay, having said all that, there are times when you need to lock that stitch in, and there are ways that you can do it with a machine that does not have reverse. So I'll go over some of those. So one method is to reverse your work, sew 2 or 3 stitches, and then reorientate your work into the direction you would like to continue your seam. So if we're going to sew along this direction, we'll start and we'll sew in the wrong direction, and these 2 or 3 stitches become our lock stitches. Now we'll put our work in the direction that we intend to sew and continue. When you reach the end of your project, your seam, you do just the opposite. So put the needle down, rotate your piece 180 degrees, and then do your 2 or 3 stitches. Do 3 this time. That looks exactly like a machine with reverse. So sometimes you can't rotate your garment if you're working on something bulky. Another way that it's done is to sew a couple, and then raise your needle, raise your foot, move your piece back the distance of those 2 stitches, and continue sewing. You'll be sewing across those 2 stitches. Same at this end. Raise your needle, back your work up. So in essence, you're sewing 2 to 3 stitches in the same spot. So it looks like that. There's one method that I can't do on this machine because it's a needle feed. Now with the drop feed machine, what you can do is put your work in where you're going to start your seam. You lift the foot up and you sew a couple of stitches with the foot lifted. Because the foot is lifted, the drop feed won't advance your work, and you'll basically just stitch in the same spot a couple times and lock that stitch in. So you sew a couple stitches, drop the foot, and off it goes. So that's a pretty fast way to do it. It does leave a little bit of a knot at the bottom, but it looks, you can hardly tell on the top. But because this is a needle feed, that method doesn't work. Okay, the one that produces the finest looking end product, and that is, you just sew your seam, and you're going to tie it off by hand. So how you do that is, typically you will go to the back side. You could do it either side, but you pull on one thread, and you can see that what that does is that puts a loop in the thread from the other side, and you'll pull the thread from the other side through that hole. And now that you have both tails, you just put a couple of overhand knots in. It does produce the best result in appearance. So what you're left with is a perfect end of a stitch, and it's tied off. So there's 4 methods, 3 of which can be done on this machine. Each one has its advantages and disadvantages. So if you were thinking about that, or ever just wondered how you can tie off stitches on a machine without reverse, that's it. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks for watching.